could tell right here that the kangaroo definitely shares a genetic link with apes. I mean, you can see it right in the clavicle area. Look at here. See? It's just that eventually, see the apes, after this, the hip area is adapting for bipedal locomotion and to birth live birth instead of marsupials. It's perfecting its forelimbs and its rear limbs and its birthing mechanism, its hips. But it's more or less the same type of being. So, yeah, these guys evolved from what are hooved ungulates, like an ancestor of antelope and a marsupial. So there is some extinct marsupial that is a transitional state from ape and kangaroo. Okay, and at some point the antelope was related to a marsupial, and the pig-footed bandicoot and the bandicoot species are an offshoot or a cousin of this because they're hooved. Okay, they got hooved like feet, and they're a marsupial. And they're related to marsupials and antelopes, which are closely related to humans on the latter. Alright, so I'll start with the whale. You have the manatee. Okay, the pinnipeds are offshoot of the manatee. The hyraxes are a manatee. Okay, the hippo is related to the whale. The even-toed ungulates, giraffe, cow, sheep, which are related to humans very closely, are related to the hippo because they are in the even-toed ungulates, which is 270 species. The elephant and the rhino here are Paracerdactylia, which are odd-toed species. Odd-toed ungulates, zebra, tapirs, horses, which are also related to humans. So humans are related to the odd and even-toed ungulates, okay, which is an offshoot of an antelope that walks bipedal, okay, because antelope, there are species of antelope that can walk bipedal, okay, and this is a transitionary state from the ungulate state to the marsupial state, and then to the ape state, okay, and during this transitional stage, there are many subspecies and some relatives that are still existing now. So it goes hooved marsupial of some sort, which is a bandicoot ancestor. Then it turns into, which is more or less like a kangaroo, an ape, human, monkey, lemur, bat. Okay, and these are all head progenitors that create subspecies. These are subprogenitors. Okay, for instance, right here, the ape. Okay, the ape is a progenitor of a human species. The human is a progenitor of the Old World monkey species. The Old World monkey species is a progenitor of the howler species, okay? And then these are all head progenitors that are going to produce subspecies of them. So the ape has its subspecies, which are orangutan and humans and gorilla, chimp, bonobos. Of course, you got mandrill, which now has a nub for a tail. It's a subspecies. They have non-prehensile tails. That means they cannot hang from trees. And then eventually they're going to evolve into a point where they can hang from the trees, which is the howler monkey. And these are New World monkeys, which have prehensile tails. Okay? So, eventually, we are going to lose our tail because we're walking upright. And then eventually, after humans, we are going to mutate a gene that are going to eventually help. When we dwarf something, it's going to grow its tail. So monkeys came from humans, evolved from humans. Just saying. There's a species that humans dwarfed that dwarfed monkeys. So I'm just saying there's a connection there. There's always a head progenitor. And that head progenitor produces a co-progenitor or a subprogenitor. And both of them are going to produce species of their own. You see what I'm saying? And going this way, the ape produces a human, which evolves into a mandrill, which evolves into the howler monkey. But we don't evolve into these, we just pass genes for them. We just have common relatives and mutations. There's a convergence or divergence depending on where you're looking in the evolutionary ladder. So bottom line, Odontoceti, whales or dolphins, manatee, these are the mammals that walk on land. All of these have 4-chambered hearts and are warm-blooded and give live birth, all of them. We never evolved into having to give live birth, technically. We've always had that. We've always given live birth. But we've had to go through our stage, or the marsupial stage in evolution, to be able to give a full-size viable offspring, more or less, instead of having to carry it in a pouch. We evolved to having to carry the baby on the inside and then producing live offspring. Whereas a kangaroo produces a live offspring that is a zygotic form, then it puts it in its pouch externally, and it grows from a zygote into a kangaroo. So this is an evolutionary stage of reproduction. Just like how in the fish lineage, or the reptile lineage, or the lizard lineage, whatever you want to say, I call it ichthyosapien lineage. Right here you have a 2-chambered heart, the whale shark, or the sharks, okay? Some species of sharks are venomous, okay? So then you have caecilians here. This is the spine. This is going to be the blueprint, okay? Cold-blooded, also, with a now 3-chambered heart, okay? Some of these have venomous saliva, caecilians, okay? They give birth and they lay eggs, okay? There's species that do both, all right? Now the tetrapod. Now this caecilian is going to grow 4 little nubs. It's going to evolve 4 little nubs. And the spine and the neck are very versatile, okay? They're unspecialized faces and all that. You know, the bones in the face are unspecialized, meaning that they can actually have different facial features like humans do, okay? So you have this tetrapod. These are actually venomous too. There are salamanders that are venomous. Frogs. This is the theropod. These are venomous also. There are some species of frogs that are venomous. They have a 3-chambered heart and they're cold-blooded. 3-chambered heart, cold-blooded, 3-chambered heart, cold-blooded, 2-chambered heart, cold-blooded. So it goes from 2 to 3 in the amphibious stage, okay? So now monitors or lizards evolve, okay? Some of these are venomous. We know this, okay? They still have a 3-chambered heart and they're cold-blooded, okay? So evolution's like, well, I want to evolve into a mammalian. I want a warm-blooded 4-chambered heart. But I'm a reptile. How am I going to do this? Well, it's going to evolve into monotremes or platypus. These have non-working venom ducts, but they can still be very painful to humans. These are 4-chambered heart and they're warm-blooded, but they still lay eggs. Everything in this lineage lays eggs. Everything in the ichthyosapien lineage lays eggs. Everything, okay? But eventually, it's going to evolve into the point where it doesn't need to lay eggs anymore. It can give live birth. So, literally, a reptile, a true reptile, see, a crocodile eventually is going to evolve here. So you got cold-blooded, then finally cold-blooded still going to evolve a 4-chambered heart. That's the crocodile, the only 4-chambered heart, cold-blooded reptile that exists, okay? They're the only ones that exist that have a 4-chambered heart and are cold-blooded, okay? So, down here, the theropod is going to want to evolve too. So it's going to do this as a duck. 4-chambered heart, warm-blooded. Some species of duck are venomous, okay? The Paraguayan venomous duck, PVD neurotoxin. Anyway, so, all right, so now there's ducks that are venomous, okay? Birds, there are bird species that are venomous, okay? So all of this stuff has venom because it needs it to protect itself. Eventually, the reptile, or the crocodile, evolves, which is not necessarily venomous, but it has toxic infections in its saliva, similar to a Komodo dragon. Aramus hydrophila. That's the bacteria. It causes bacterial infections. So it's not necessarily that it's venomous, but it can spread infection very easily. More or less defense mechanism that's de-evolved, you know, because of the size and its bite. You know, it's an apex predator, so it doesn't necessarily need venom. But if it needs to catch a victim that, say, is faster, and it can inflict a good wound and get it infected, then like the Komodo dragon, it can trace it down and find it and eat it. Okay, so eventually when you have a theropod and a tetrapod hybrid, because of salamanders utilizing frogs' DNA, frogs, vice versa, kleptogenesis, okay, you have a sauropod hybrid, okay? And many hybrids can exist, okay? This is going to be variations of cold and warm-blooded four-chambered hearts. Sauropods can walk on all four, long legs, but can stand on front or rear legs. Duckbill platypus dinosaur, which is a theropod, and it has four limbs. The Titanosaurus, Perlititan, various variations of hair and feathers, bipedal and quadruped. Okay, so again, this lineage can actually produce something like this, an alien gray, a bipedal sauropod with a four-chambered heart that gives live birth, ovoviviparous. It doesn't lay eggs. It can actually give live birth. So like the crocodile being the only reptile with a four-chambered heart, it's a true reptile, This thing would be a true reptilian. And it wouldn't lay eggs, it would actually have live birth. It would be ovoviviparous. It would probably hatch eggs inside it and then give live birth. But it'd be a birthing mechanism that this lineage could evolve and not have to lay eggs anymore. It could be live birth. So it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be, wouldn't have to worry about predators stealing eggs. So the fish wants to walk on land. It does this in an amphibious state, goes from a two-chambered heart to a three-chambered heart. It walks on all fours from a three-chambered to a four-chambered heart. It goes from a three-chambered cold to a warm-blooded four-chambered heart, and it also stays a cold four-chambered heart. So it evolves parallel here. Down here, the four-chambered heart evolves parallel with this up here, the evolution here. And you have a four-chambered, warm-blooded reptile, which is actually a bird. Because birds and monitors and duckbill platypus are all in the ichthyosapien lineage. Okay? And that's why they're related, and that's why they're all venomous, and that's why they all have the same traits. Because they're in this lineage. They're not true mammals. The true mammalian lineage here always has a warm-blooded four-chambered heart and gives live birth. Always. Even when it's a marsupial, it's still giving live birth. It just doesn't give live birth to a fully grown baby. It's in a premature baby form when it's born, and then it holds it in a pouch, That's the amphibious, or not the amphibious, but the evolutionary way of our reproduction. That's why the marsupial is the closest cousin to humans. And that's why they look so much like apes. So humans, just because we're mammals like ducks and birds, does not mean we're related to birds at all. We're not even in the same lineage. They are a reptilian lineage. They are an ichthyosapien. They are an ichthyomamosapien. That means they're the fish version of a mammal. That's what they are. We are always the mammalian version of a mammal. We don't change species. Animals don't necessarily change species unless it's amphibious and it can adapt and change species. And that's why there's so many variations of salamanders, caecilian, and frogs. That's why they have the most diverse species of any kind of most of the animals on Earth. Because there's so many thousands of frogs and hundreds of salamanders and hundreds of caecilian species. You got the smaller the animal, the more it's going to be able to mutate. So the more species it's going to have. The larger the animal, the less chance of it passing a mutant dwarf gene. So there's going to be less diversification of the larger animals. And that's why there's so many bacterias, because on the small scale you're going to have way more bacterias than anything. And then fish, you know, they're small. Birds are small. The smaller the animal, the more mutations and variations. The larger the animal, the less mutations and variations. And that's why Peto's paradox is in place with whales. That's why they're cancer resistant, because evolutionary radiation does not affect them the same way because of the sheer scaling size. Okay, metabolic theory of ecology. Okay, that's what that is. An extension of the metabolic scaling theory and Kleiber's law. So I'm just trying to set people on the right track to understand evolution, because it's not as hard as you'd think. It gets deep, but the stuff that I'm talking about actually has truth and viability to it, because it can't be debunked. It's actually based off of real evidence. It's a third point of view is all it is. It's I want to say, just a logical, rational way to think, you know? Instead of listening to them say we evolved out of the ocean and then jump back, where's all the time frame to when we evolved into the ocean? Okay? First of all, it has to exist to be able to evolve into the ocean. Well, how does it exist, and where does it come from? Where does all that time account for that's mysteriously missing? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's a form of lateral thinking. You're coming at it from a different point of view, you know? So if you don't look at it how it's been told to us so long that doesn't make sense and keeps us confused, then why don't we look at it from a different point of view and look at how it might make more sense? And lo and behold, it makes more sense that we evolved from the oceans and stayed out of them. Then we're not related to ducks and monitors and monotremes or platypus at all. They're in a completely different lineage than we are. We are related to whales, and we mutated from whales, dwarf genes. So I'm just throwing it out there. The harsh fact is we are all dwarf mutants of whales. And that's the bottom line. Everything on Earth that is mammal and gives live birth is a mutant genetic offspring of the whale and the cetaceans. So I'm just throwing it out there.